Columbia, Houston, we're looking at our Payload Bay camera, and it looks like a lot of moonlight glinting off the ocean, a whole sparkling bed of diamonds out there. Is that a real picture, or are we just getting some video fuzz?
Houston, we're recording that. That's some of the ice crystals that we were dumping out earlier, and yeah, it's a beautiful picture.
That's a great combination of the moonlight and the ice and the clouds.
And it's a combination of moonlight making those ice crystals sparkle, and maybe as well as some of the sun starting to come up on the horizon.
Well, thanks for the picture.
And Columbia, Huntsville for Scott, if you haven't adjusted the 35 millimeter intervalometer yet, you could adjust that to 2 seconds. If you've already passed that step, that's no problem, and you can proceed.
Okay, we'll go to 2 seconds on the intervalometer. It's no problem. Just take a couple seconds to reset it. And is sample 7 looks like a different material than the last one?
And Columbia for Scott, that should be the same type of material.
Okay, is it thicker, or is it, because it looks like it might be a little thicker?
No, it seems like it appears that way, but it should be the same thickness.
Okay, and we modified the thermocouples as you said, and we'll modify the camera settings, and it'll be a few more minutes before we're finished setting up.
Okay, copy that, Scott. That camera was something that they noticed in their last data run.
See it now?
Okay. It's just a straight segment on the same brightness over the whole length of the segment. Right now we don't really see the satellite itself, just a straight segment in the sky. And we see the satellite now, it's like a bright spot at the end of the tether, and on the other end, the low end, there's also a relatively bright spot, which is maybe an accumulation of the tether. And we are downlinking camera delta now.
Okay, we copied and understand as you're viewing it on the monitor, the satellite is at the top of the tether.
That's correct. Well, let me take this back. Venus is above the tether, so the satellite is on the same side as Venus. So it's on the monitor. I'm looking at the monitor now. It's on the lower side of the tether on the monitor.
And thanks, Claude. We copy.
And do you see camera delta view?
Affirmative.
Okay.
Vicinity of the shuttle, the satellite is continuing to move away rapidly from Columbia.
Camera Bravo. We had the camera Bravo constantly on the tether. Unfortunately, we don't see the tip of the boom, but in a few seconds you'll see the tether break. And this one, of course, was not attended. It just recorded. It could not be bumped either, so it will record steadily the whole break and coil back to the tether.
Copy, Claude.
We go.
Again, this is a view of the satellite.
Well, if it had to break, it did it in the right place.
True.
Commander Andy Allen reported earlier that the tether apparently broke inside the boom in Columbia's cargo bay with only about 10 meters of tether left.
Seen any downlink?
We have the downlink and we have the tether.
It's in the upper left-hand corner there, straight as an arrow. So it seems from here.
Yes, sir, we have it. Great picture.
It came and went pretty quick, but that was about as much as we have of it.
Columbia and the satellite now 77 nautical miles apart. Again, that call reporting that the crew can see the tether and see the satellite, that it's beautiful. This view showing the satellite. Again, just moving into sunrise. 81 nautical miles now from Columbia.
Getting the image?
Franklin, we see a long line, a couple of star-like things, and a lot of things swimming in the foreground. Can you describe what you're seeing?
Well, the long line is a tether, and there's a little bit of debris that kind of flies with us, and it's illuminated by the sun at such low angles. So there's a lot of stray light, and it's getting washed out quickly, but Claude is trying to do a quick, good job here adjusting the cameras.
Copy that.
Again, that description by the crew, this is the tether in the satellite with approximately 12 miles of tether still attached to it. Columbia and the satellite now just passing over the west coast of northern Africa. The two spacecraft now 90 nautical miles apart. Controllers for the satellite did have communications with it during the close pass between Columbia and the satellite.
Columbia, Houston, that's a much better view, a lot more contrast visible. And how wide does that tether appear to be? It seems to resemble a much wider strand than we'd expect. Can you describe which way the satellite is visible on that strand?
Satellite now 100 nautical miles.
Charlie, completely unzoomed, and you see the full extent of the tether. I try to adjust the focus, but I can't get better than that.
Okay, Claude. Thank you.
I'm going to zoom in now.
satellite and Columbia now almost 100 nautical miles apart. Controllers here remain in communications with the satellite. They've been in communications with it now via the payload interrogator on board Columbia, using Columbia as a communications relay station for telemetry from the satellite. They've been in communications for about 47 minutes, receiving a very solid lock of communications with it. Those communications now starting to get some interference, however, still retaining communications to the satellite. Controllers did send commands to the satellite to attempt to gain some science information using the experiments on the satellite, and experiments simultaneously in Columbia's cargo bay, essentially using the satellite's instruments to attempt to detect electron beam emissions done by instruments in Columbia's cargo bay. Again, the two passed within 46 nautical miles of one another. The crew first saw the satellite when it was 150 nautical miles distant. During the past sunrise. During this sunrise, this view shows the satellite again here in the center of the screen with 12 nautical miles of tether connected to it. At present, the two now are 108 nautical miles apart. Columbia now ahead of the satellite. Continue to separate from it at a rate of 335 nautical miles per orbit.
We copy, Scott, and we'd like to confirm you got 2 copies of that.
And the second one's printing right now, thank you.
And
you can see the grapple fixture on the wake shield almost in the center of this picture. A successful rendezvous so far for Endeavour. The jet thruster plume impingement tests that were conducted at distances of 290 feet and 200 feet resulted in approximately 14 jet thruster firings, which gave engineers all the data that they were looking for as far as the effect of jet thruster plumes on an orbiting spacecraft were concerned.
We're at a mission elapsed time of 7 days, 13 hours, and 17 minutes. This is Mission Control, Houston. The Mir space station is now visible on the far left-hand side of the screen, about an inch from the bottom of this particular picture. And there were also a number of shooting stars in that view. The camera has now moved to a point Okay, the Mir space station is the small flashing light in the center, about an inch from
Camera Charlie on the monitor.
the left-hand side of the screen. It's slowly
Tally ho on the camera.
it is slowly moving closer to the left-hand side and is has a very light flashing to it.
We think on the middle of the screen, way to the left-hand side.
And
We've seen a lot of meteors.
The streaks that are shooting across the screen are meteorites. In other words, shooting stars.
We think you can see a flashing light just a little bit to the left of the center of the screen, very faint.
Yeah, we do see something flashing visually, but we're not sure that might be from our own leaker.
Mir sunrise in about a minute.
Okay.
This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, we believe we were just able to spot the Mir spacecraft as it flies about 850 nautical miles behind Discovery. The spacecraft appeared as a very small flashing light and then moved out of the picture as the camera was being moved to try to get a different picture. The one thing that we have noticed in the flight control room is that we've seen a large number of shooting stars during this 5-minute or so period when we've been watching.
Checkpoint initiates and work.
Thank you.
During this 5 or so minute period when we've been watching for Mir.
Deborah Houston, we show the right stars, but we'd like you to clear the star table on spec 22, please.
Okay, Chris, we see that also. We're looking at the -E tracker, trying to make sure there wasn't any bright objects in the field of view. And it looks like the shutter's closed right now. I can manually open it if y'all concur.
Another light going by on the ground there. It could have been a star, Bill.
Hey, Roger.
Okay, Bill, I'm going to switch tapes on you now and give you a daylight view here.
Okay, and one last question before you do that, Mario. Could you tell in this if the red Stimpsonite is on the left?
I believe it was, based upon what I saw in the day imagery, because it remained very stable in that sense, in that the red end always seemed to be forward in this case.
Out over the Pacific Ocean at an altitude of 170 statute miles, currently flying with the payload bay faced toward the Earth and the tail in the direction of travel. This view is from one of the forward payload bay cameras on board Columbia. 11 hours, 2 minutes into the flight of Columbia. This is Mission Control, Houston.
camera lens.
Looks like you got an object right in front of you, Mark. Can you look out there?
I'm not sure what you're talking about. Never mind. Are we missing something? I don't see anything. Yeah, we think. We think the camera filter came off, Mark. It's about your 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock going away. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay?
It might just be the monitor that I'm looking at shaking. On your video, when the jets are firing, do you see the camera moving at all, oscillating? It might just be the monitor that I'm looking at shaking. On your video, when the jets are firing, do you see the camera moving at all, oscillating?
for its return to flight on the first International Space Station Assembly mission a year from now. McMonagle and Harbaugh are not expected to uncover any revelation in their examination of those airlock hatches which would alter the decision made by the mission managers earlier today to cancel the spacewalks, but they are engaged in a data collection effort to take a look at the gearboxes on the hatches themselves to which the hatch handles are attached. Those gearboxes, or actually the gearbox on Columbia, is considered to be a possible suspect in preventing that hatch handle from rotating to the full unlocked position, which canceled the spacewalk by Jernigan and Jones on Thursday night, and ultimately resulted in a decision by the mission managers to scrub the spacewalks for the rest of the mission. So with the spacewalk activity and further troubleshooting activity terminated by the mission management team, the astronauts are enjoying a bit of relaxation time aboard the orbiter.
Enrica. Houston, Atlantis, both TCS-1 and 2 are powered off, both shutters and both Z-latches, or both shutters closed, both Z-latches locked.
Thanks, Rick. Go ahead, Ron.
Roger.
Endeavour continues its methodical approach to the Yost Flyer, which is in the proper orientation for its grapple by Koichi Wakata through the use of the shuttle's robot arm. Following its deployment early Sunday, Endeavour separated from the Yost Flyer to a distance of about 145 nautical miles before conducting a series of rendezvous maneuvers following yesterday's spacewalk to begin returning to the satellite.
100 feet on the laser.
100.
Houston.
Copy.
Endeavour nearing the final position for grapple. Brian Duffy will put the brakes on at about 35 feet.
Houston, Columbia, reference to call out on the flight plan at 11 hours MET. Is there a target state vector on board?
Affirmative. We have a new target vector on board. Go ahead for wake shield.
To return to Earth following their mission.
Atlantis for TCS.
Go ahead, Story.
We see a good cal on TCS2. Can you do an acquire command and then update the seed range?
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Шаттл находится почти под вами. Дальность 600 футов. И я думаю, вы его не увидите, потому что он для вас по третьей плоскости. Шаттл прошел вертикаль под вами, и облет идет с удвоенной орбитальной скоростью. То есть за полвитка один раз облетает вокруг станции. Да, в пространстве это под вами, а по отношению к вам это в сторону третьей плоскости базового блока. И уходит в сторону правого борта.
Хорошо. Спасибо.
Ребята, мы вас слышим.
Слушаю вас, хорошо. Есть 2 минутки времени.
We have a couple minutes.
Откройте, пожалуйста. Я сейчас хотел вам...
Recapture of the Wake Shield facility, that capture occurring at 8:01 p.m. Central Time this evening. Operating the mechanical arm aboard Columbia was astronaut Tom Jones, while Commander Ken Cockrell flew the shuttle to within 35 feet of the Wake Shield, holding it steady while Jones latched the arm onto the satellite. The satellite since now has been berthed into the cargo bay and latched in place. In view now the end of the shuttle's mechanical arm as it latches onto the grapple fixture for the Wake Shield. morning for the crew, not yet midday. The crew's about still about almost 2 hours away from beginning lunch and midday on board. This will extend the operations with Wake Shield into what is their early afternoon. This television is live from Columbia, showing the cargo bay of the spacecraft. Columbia currently over the nighttime side of Earth, above the southern Atlantic. Again, Wake Shield is at the end of the mechanical arm, seen in this view, extended out over the left-hand side of the cargo bay. The Wake Shield's wake side, the underside of the spacecraft, is angled into Columbia's direction of travel at about 45 degrees. That's the position for the atomic oxygen processing experiment that is underway. That experiment, again, it studies using naturally occurring atomic oxygen molecules in low Earth orbit to produce aluminum oxide film.
Houston, this is the camera Delta view.
Yeah, we copy, Tom. It looks good.
This is Mission Control Houston. Again, we are looking at a videotape replay of the deploy of the Orpheus SPAS satellite that took place yesterday at 10:11 p.m. Central Time.
This is Mission Control Houston. We're at a mission elapsed time of 12 days, 2 hours and 18 minutes. Currently on board Columbia, the crew is still asleep. They have about 41 minutes remaining in a sleep period. When they are awakened, they will begin the 13th day of the mission. This 13th day will include some rest time, an opportunity to talk with family members, and a mid-deck test of one of the new tools to be used for future spacewalks. Once the crew is awakened, they will have their traditional post-sleep period, and then the 5 Columbia astronauts will spend the first half of its day off duty.
because the little locking tab on the outside should mirror exactly what she's doing on the inside.
Okay. Right now, the handle is installed with the tab in the unlocked position. I'm going to rotate the tab to the locked position now if you're ready.
We're ready.
Okay, we are fully seated in the locked position.
Okay, Tammy, we didn't see any motion on the outside. If you would, go ahead and move it back to the unlocked.
Okay, I'm pulling back to the unlocked, and again, it's only going about 3/4 of the way, will not lie flat, and will not seat, as I mentioned earlier.
And Tammy, if you could, simultaneous with trying to put it in the unlocked position, if you would move the handle a little bit back and forth.
You bet. Okay, that should work now, Bill.
Okay, and we can see the handle moving on the outside.
Okay, and but any indication that the lock is being actuated?
No, we can't see any indication of that, and it just may be a bad angle and too dark. We're not certain.
An unlock mechanism. 1X. Also, thanks for pulling that handle off the hatch, lunar hatch.